Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, we've got nightmare Karen bosses, bad coworkers, and one OP teaches a cheap company owner a lesson they won't ever forget. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. In the early years of being a pharmacist, jobs in my city were hard to come by. I managed full-time hours by working for a couple of pharmacist friends at both of their stores. They would work out my schedule together, and then put an X on my schedule on the days I was at the opposing store. One store was downtown, and one was in the suburb I lived in. At the suburb pharmacy, I had this coworker who we'll call D, who couldn't wrap her brain around the fact that if there was an X by my name, I was in fact working, just at the other store. Multiple times, I would have call after call on my cell phone and hang-ups on my answering machine at home, because she wanted me to cover her shift at the suburb store when I was already working downtown. The worst thing was, my cell phone charged me every single call, so after the second time of her pulling this, I would get downtown and immediately pull the battery off my phone. This made her angry at me for ignoring her, and we had a tepid relationship after that. So that said, time went on, and the suburb store starts expanding their nursing home operation, so I was able to work there full-time instead. I still had a great relationship with the downtown store, and they had me keep the keys, just in case of emergencies. They would occasionally come up, and the X would be on the schedule by my name. Sadly, D became the assistant manager, and now she thought she was the boss of me. Now, the downtown pharmacist's daughter was getting married, and the suburb pharmacist was invited to all the festivities. I got scheduled to work the Thursday before at the downtown store, so the X went by my name on the suburb schedule. I was also going to the wedding, as I was good friends with the daughter, but missing the party on Thursday as I was working for her mom. I was on the phone with her on my break one time, and she was saying how sorry she was that I was missing it, and that's when I said, "Don't worry, I'll pretend I was there." Now, at that exact week, we were getting new pharmacy software downloaded. Nursing homes are run on a batch system where all the labels are run about 5 days before. Then all the bubble packs are made up during that time, and then the actual billing's done on Thursday for the meds to be delivered Friday. Well, that's when power-tripping D decided that she didn't want the batch to be done, and she wanted everything to be processed and made up on Thursday. My technician was freaking out, so I just told her to make up the usual drug cards without any patient data to help speed things along. D overheard this, and she told the tech that she wasn't allowed to do that. And then she said, this younger generation is just scared of hard work and needs to be taught a lesson. She was looking right at me when she said this. I did panic a bit because I was the only one of my age, as all of my coworkers were older. But then I went to check the schedule, and that's when I found there's an X by my name. I tried to say something to D because obviously without me there, it'll put everything out of order. But she told me, no excuses. As I said, the younger generation needs to be taught about hard work. So cue the malicious compliance. I won't be there for the crap show that day, but somehow D thinks I am. So why should I tell her any different? Thursday rolls around, and at 12:30, my cell phone starts blowing up. It's in my purse in the safe, and everyone can hear it. Out comes the battery. I get home after work, and they're screaming and swearing on my answering machine. The temporary pharmacist who worked the morning shift wasn't instructed to do anything, so everything was left for D when she arrived at 12:30. She had to work late to finish over 500 prescription drug cards. I come in the next day, and she's furious, screaming, "You said you were working. I heard you talking about the effing party thing." That's when I told her I tried to tell her that I was working, just not at that store, as evidenced by the X by my name. I learned then that she could eavesdrop on the break room from one place in the pharmacy when she herself was the only pharmacist working at the time. All of my breaks were taken in my car after this. Oh man, the satisfying feeling when someone falls into a trap that they set for someone else. And the fact that D had to do all of that hard work that she was trying to teach OP about and was probably fuming the whole shift fills me with absolute joy, guys. That's karma for you. So this happened more than a decade ago, when I was still in the US Army. As a sergeant, you would get an annual performance report written by your supervisor, and that was a big part of getting you promoted or not, as this was your non-commissioned officer evaluation report. My direct supervisor, who we'll call Staff Sergeant D-Bag, did not like me at all. One evening, I get an email from him stating something along the lines of, "Here's your evaluation report, sign it and send it back." So I read this report and I almost sprain my eyeballs. I'm rolling them so hard. Like this is the worst evaluation report I've ever read, much less received. He was really taking a lot of liberties and in my opinion, wasn't doing himself any favors by writing such bad stuff about my performance, him being my direct supervisor and all. Well, there's a section of the evaluation report where he was supposed to write the dates that he formally counseled me about my performance throughout the year. And those counselings should support the performance he's writing about in the evaluation report. Except, he never formally counseled me on anything. That would involve paperwork and him doing his job correctly, which he never did. But oddly enough, there were dates filled in for several quarterly counselings that he supposedly had done with me. So that said, cue the malicious compliance. I email him back requesting that he send me copies of the quarterly counselings that he referenced in the report, so that I could better address my shortcomings that he had so clearly spelled out in the report. He very quickly responded that he didn't have copies, but my report was due in the morning, so I just need to sign it and send it back to him so it wouldn't be late. That's when a smile came to my face. I told him that I would be happy to make some corrections that I felt better represented my performance, then send it to him for review and then sign it so he wouldn't have to turn it in late to our first sergeant. Otherwise, I would have to wait for him to come up with the quarterly counselings for me to look over before I feel comfortable with signing. Now, he knew he hadn't done the quarterly counselings, and even if he faked a few with the dates that matched the evaluation report, they wouldn't have my signature on them, and there wasn't a chance in hell that I would sign a negative counseling with a fake date on it. So he was stuck. Either admit to First Sergeant that he hadn't done his job all year but wanted me to sign off on a bad evaluation report, or let me write my own evaluation report and force him to sign off on it. In the end, guess who has 2 thumbs and a glowing evaluation report? What a brilliant malicious compliance that was, and seriously, kudos to OP for having the nerve to stand up to their staff sergeant like that. And yeah, if the sergeant wasn't a fan of OP before that, they definitely won't be a fan after that glowing review he was forced to submit. And this person comments, if you know the military, it's not surprising and sad that this same thing happens many times every day. The pro move is to write your own performance reviews that can be offered as a draft or sent last minute, as here. So nearly 15 years ago, I went to work for a company. The intent was for me to complete a project in quality and then move over into program management. But someone quit and I was asked to fill in as a customer quality engineer. That meant that every month I traveled to customer sites, did the first pass analysis of our defective products, and got yelled at a lot. It sucked. It's also worth mentioning that our branch of the company was too small to use the corporate travel. So for every trip, I was scouring discount travel sites to find the cheapest flight, hotel, and car. I was ridiculously vigorous in seeking best prices. If the crappiest crapbox car was $32 a day, and the not-so-crappy car was $34 a day, I would often pick the $32 a day car to save the company $2 that day. So that said, one fine trip several months in was spectacularly awful. Not only did I have a truly terrible car, the hotel was all new depths of yuck. My shoes stuck to the carpet in my room, and the security flipper thing on the door was plastic. Also, it was in the worst part of town, and I worried so much for my safety to the point that I ended up pulling a couch over to block the door and sleeping on it. Adding to my misery, I was also sick. I had some creeping crud that plugged my sinuses and made me long for death. Normally, I would have canceled the trip, but the customer was losing their mind and required someone to be there. I made this trek every month, and once during every trip, I would eat at the local Outback Steakhouse. On this particular trip, I make my way to the Outback for dinner, and I was clearly sick and miserable. All the workers took care of me. They sat me next to a fireplace, brought me tea, and had the kitchen make me chicken noodle soup, even though it wasn't on the menu. I nearly cried, I was so grateful. My bill for dinner was less than $10, so I charged $20. And yes, more than 100% tip, but their kindness kept me going. I then got home, did my expense report, and then turned it in. That's when my boss calls me into his office and he screams at me how the corporate policy was 10% tip and it should never exceed 15%. And what the heck is wrong with me for paying them so much? And remember, the total bill including this excessive tip was $20. It broke me. Well, it shattered my loyalty to the company's bottom line. I then made them give me the corporate travel policy where the tip policy was outlined. And from that moment on, I followed the corporate travel policy exactly. No more crappy $32 a day cars. I'm in a midsize or better. No more flying out at 4 a.m. in the center seat. The flights fit my schedule now, and I sat where I wanted. No more scary hotels in the worst part of town. Now, I'm staying at the nicest executive hotel allowed by the policy. The cost of my trips were pretty regularly double or triple what they had been, adding up to thousands of dollars a year, but I never disobeyed their allowable tip policy ever again. And here's the true irony. Their corporate tip policy actually had a line that said, exceptional service could be recognized with an additional gratuity, but basically, don't make a habit of it. Also, the allowable per diem was $50 a day, and a receipt was only required if over that amount. So the tip that started the whole thing was within per diem, allowable for exceptional service, and the receipt for it had not been necessary. Yeah, let this be a lesson learned. Never sacrifice or compromise your well-being for a company, period. Like, I know OP meant well, but at the end of the day, saving the company $2 to $3 on a car rental per day, or however much to stay in a sketchy motel, nuh-uh, no job is ever worth that. Like just reading that OP had to pull the couch to block the door because they stayed in a dingy motel and feared for their safety. Stop torturing yourself. So back in the early 2000s, I was working for a local council in New Zealand. If you're not aware, New Zealand has a central government and a series of local areas around the cities, each run by an elected mayor and council. The day-to-day business is of course done by employees in a typical business structure. One of the things about this is that all computer systems are regarded as being owned by the council, and kinda sorta by the populace. If a member of the public wants to see what's on the computers, they can make a request under the Official Information Act, and they can see pretty much everything except for private data. Private data, being defined by the Privacy Act, is basically names, addresses, birth dates, phone numbers, etc. Also, working in the council offices was a small business that had exclusive contract with the council. This group handled the more physical aspects of the council systems, like maintenance of roads, sewer, and water systems. If the council said, we need a new pipe there, this small business made it happen. The thing is, the small business leased their computers from the council, and this is important. The small IT team of 3 people, including me, had built and supplied those machines. We owned the software that was on them, and they were connected to the internal council network. This meant they were subject to the same local government and council policies as the rest of us. So that said, periodically in IT, we would clean out large files. Again, this was the early 2000s when storage was expensive and we were limited due to budget. Now, the staff were fully aware of this and they knew to keep personal files to a minimum. If we, during a purge, found large personal files, we could delete them at our discretion. During this time, we found some videos on this one employee's machine. It was X-rated and not the nice kind either. The word fecal would apply. Because this violated council policy in so many ways, we deleted it quietly. Well, the employee in question complained, claiming that we had removed personal files. Now, I never saw the videos, happily, but my understanding is that he wasn't in them. They were stuff he downloaded. So of course, we point at the policy. He then went to the CEO and complained, and the CEO came to us. Now, my boss had figured this might happen, and he showed the CEO one of the videos. The video was on the backups, just in case we deleted something we shouldn't have, and to restore it. I wasn't there when it happened, but by all accounts, the CEO hauls the employee and the employee's boss to an out-of-hearing location and rip them a new one. The only reason the employee wasn't fired was because technically, he worked for the small business and not the council. And for your information, we would regularly block X-rated sites, but being in the early 2000s, new ones popped up all the time. Unless an employee tried to access them, we probably didn't know they existed. It's not that we were prudes, it's just most staff weren't stupid enough to browse that stuff at work. Honestly, if anyone's dumb enough to complain about their X-rated stuff being deleted from a work computer, they should probably lose their job on the basis of being a frickin' idiot. Like, it just hurts me knowing there's people out there like that, and the person who complained probably isn't somebody who should be anywhere near a government agency. This person comments, I had a coworker that wasn't exactly the sharpest crayon in the box. They got fired not just for watching X-rated videos on the company computer, but downloading it and saving it, not only on his work computer, but on the office server. The craziest part of this is he subscribed and paid for it with the company credit card, which he then tried to expense under the argument that it was fair game and can be categorized under meals and entertainment. It's been 2 decades, and to this day, I can't decide if that was the boldest move or the dumbest move I've ever seen. So I work as a support manager for a company that sells credit card readers and other services for processing money. This story starts out with a phone call that one of our newest staff members received. The caller doesn't introduce themselves and instead loudly demands to speak to no less than the CEO of the company, and won't give any information aside from his repeated demands and some indirect swearing. Now, normally, this would earn them a terminated call, but I want to know who has the audacity to scream at my staff and demand the CEO no less, so I have him transferred over. Having had some of these calls before, I introduce myself with a very fancy title and ensure the caller that whatever his support needs are, I can handle them without any issue. I tell the person the CEO's busy at the moment and I'm next in line in the support organization. The caller tells me his name's Steve. Now, not just any Steve, mind you, but the guy tells me that he's Steve, the owner of Steve's Cafe. And not just one of Steve's Cafe, mind you, but the owner of all 7 of Steve's Cafes. So the guy's very important, and I should be careful with how I deal with him. Steve's already offended that he was given to me, and not the CEO like he demanded. He's the owner, you see, and he needs to talk to my owner, not me. He says I don't own 7 cafes, and I certainly don't own my company, so I can't possibly understand his needs, and I can't make the hard choices he needs made. That's when I again assure him that I do have the position and authority to do anything he requires. I'm the manager of the support department. I can make any changes he requires. I can set up new accounts, order devices, anything. He only needs to tell me his problems and I'll provide solutions. I will support him. Well, being the all-high and mighty owner he is, the next words are immediate and aggressive. He screams at me and says, "Can you cancel my accounts because I'm getting pissed off?" I just think, well, yes I can. I inform him that we need written requests to cancel. I also try to inquire why he needs to cancel his accounts, as this is standard procedure. If he wants to close his accounts, then we close his account, but any feedback is useful. Is he leaving because the product was bad, because the service was bad, because he found a better deal? We would like to know. But before I can get a few more words out, he shouts again and says, "Have the damn CEO call me. He has my number." And then he disconnects. The first thing the next morning, I get invited to an emergency meeting by the CEO, as well as a few other admins. We go over what happened, and then I'm shown an email. Steve's managed to find the CEO's internal email address and sent him an email complaining about one of his 7 stores having a horrible time with the product. He's demanding no less than the cancellation of all of his accounts and a refund for the last 3 months of payments, as the product is totally unusable. I checked the logs, and the problem location does indeed have a problem that started yesterday morning. They're not down, but they're having a bad time. There's no emails or calls informing us, just the screaming cancellation request. I send over the call logs, and we listen to Steve scream and curse at the support agent before he gets sent to me. And then I hear 2 words that cue this malicious compliance. The words, "cancel them." The meeting goes quiet, the CEO spoken. We cancel all 7 accounts and we shut down services. They start their day bright and early with devices that don't work. And that's when the calls come in. Again, the CEO speaks and says that account has been canceled. Follow procedure. So each manager calls me frantically explaining that nothing's working. The staff apologetically tell them that their account was canceled per their owner's email. We can no longer provide support. Shortly thereafter, the owner calls in, once again screaming to turn them back on. He says, "Uncancel them this instant. Get my devices working. Do you know how much money I'm losing?" So I check with the CEO, and after receiving a nod, I say, "Per your request made over the phone yesterday and your email this morning, your accounts have been canceled." Steve just gets madder and he screams, "I didn't mean to actually cancel them. You were making me mad. I just wanted to let you know what would happen if you didn't fix my issue." The guy continues to yell, and I let the CEO know, and at his request, I transfer Steve to his office phone. Now I wish there was a satisfying ending to this story, but Steve and our boss talked. Steve was informed that his behavior was unacceptable. Steve also admitted that he was expecting expedited service and possibly a discount when he threatened to cancel. He didn't really want to cancel his accounts. He just wanted support to take him seriously and transfer him up the chain so he could get faster, better service. There was no real apology, though both I and the initial support agent were told that Steve would behave himself from now on and to report if he didn't. The services were resumed, and all 7 locations were open late that day. The one location that did have issues yesterday got on the phone with the support agent and were sorted out in a reasonable amount of time. I do hope that Steve learned that threatening to cancel your account sometimes leads you to canceling your account and not to a discount. You know what? Here I was hoping that they kept Steve's account canceled to really make him get the point. Like threatening employees, getting loud and aggressive is the worst way to try to get what you want, and I really hope Steve learns that at the very least. But yeah, those 7 stores must have been generating OP's company a lot of money because again, I was hoping he would be told to kick rocks by the CEO. So about 4 years ago, I worked for a company that provided behavior services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We did individual counseling, parent trainings, data analysis, etc. Think highly specialized mental care and support in home and community settings. Anyways, after 2 years of working there and getting another certification, I asked my boss for a raise. I was newly divorced, raising 3 kids, so I really needed the money. I had been working 10+ hours a week of overtime to stay afloat. And the thing is, my boss also knew about my situation. My evaluations were great, and I'd been told that I would be moving up to supervisor soon, so my boss had to have known this conversation was coming. Well, this man looks me dead in my eyes, and he said he knew I wanted to make more money and that my reviews were great. But he wanted to make sure that I was, quote, loyal to the company mission. My boss then told me that he can tell when people are, quote, just looking to make more money, and we tell those people to go work somewhere else. He wanted to make sure that the new supervisor would, quote, put the company mission and families they support first. He told me he couldn't offer me a raise at the time, but he would get back to me. There was no date set for a follow-up meeting or anything. So I started applying for new jobs that day. Within 2 weeks, I had found a new position, making double the salary for only 40 hours of work a week. As it turns out, I was being severely underpaid. Shocker, I know. The day I handed in my notice, my boss and the owner were in a meeting about my new position. Of course, no one said anything to me about it beforehand. They sent me an offer, which I politely declined because it was barely more than I was making now, with more responsibilities. They then tried to hire me on as a contractor at a rate that was at least 25% lower than every other contractor rate in the city for my position, so I turned that down too. My boss and the owner were both shocked that I rejected their offers, especially since they were willing to offer me so many perks. They said they were giving me the opportunity to become a leader in a great company, and believed I was a great clinician who would do so many great things within their organization. That's when I remind my boss that he's the one who told me to go work somewhere else, and then I stopped responding to their messages and calls. I must have ignored at least 20 calls and texts before they gave up. Honestly, good on OP for making their way out of that company because literally there was no future there. Like, that's the type of company that piles on loads of work, burns out their employees, refuses to give raises, and then has the nerve to talk about loyalty and missions. And trust me, a long time ago, when I was a naive kid right out of school, I fell for the same thing. I fell for, we're family at this company, blah blah blah. Just do this, work for this wage, work loads of overtime, just help us out. And seriously, when I got enough courage to ask for a raise, they would say stuff like, oh, we're not doing all that great this year. You make enough money with overtime. Some people are lucky to have a job right now, just piling on the excuses. Meanwhile, the bosses always bought new houses, cars, boats, you name it. Again, I'm glad OP escaped and realized that they can make double the money. Let me know your thoughts though, and that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a psycho Karen family gang up on this poor bus driver and they learn a lesson they won't forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.